Norine Higuchi Brown was a 31-year-old from New Hyde Park, New York. She was the mother of two and was close friends with her former high school classmates. During the evening of December 12, 1990, Norine allegedly decided to drive to the local grocery store to get cookie dough. She didn't return. The next morning, Norine's car was found in the store's parking lot. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Denzel, and this is Unfound. You've been told by me, most probably to the point of being nauseous, about the kind of disappearance we're featuring today. Yep, it's the man said type. It gets its title from the simple point that when you ask somebody what happened to a woman, the person starts with, the man said. That could be her husband, boyfriend, ex-hubby, ex-boyfriend, male friend, whatever. And on top of that, the man's story just isn't believable. Well, there's something else you need to understand about this type. It is certainly the kind in which the public is most likely to agree on what happened. Not too much 3 a.m. Reddit scrawling going on with this type usually. Yet, this is also the kind that is also on the extreme end of the we know what happened but can't prove it scale. Well, with Norine Brown, you'll be like, yep, we've heard this before. Yet we hold out hope for a good outcome. Yep, this kind is one tough cookie. And now a summary of the case. Norine Brown was born to parents of different ethnicities, Japanese and German. She had siblings, and her childhood into her high school years was fairly normal. In fact, the friends made during these years were the people who would eventually reignite the investigation into her disappearance. Into the 80s, Norine took clerical jobs, and eventually she met John Brown, who would become her husband. He was a firefighter who also ran a plumbing business. They had 2 children. Norine and John and the kids were all still together at the time of her disappearance, but dysfunction in the marriage, mainly abuse put upon Norine by John, was well known. So, on the evening of December 12th, 1990, in a story that John would tell later, Norine left their house to get cookie dough at a grocery store 2 miles away. She did not return, and there is no reliable information as to whether John went looking for her or not. The next morning, John called Norine's friend Elaine, asking her to go check the grocery store's parking lot to see if Norine's car was there. John did not explain why he didn't do it for himself. In the lot was Norine's vehicle. Nothing seemed to be amiss, with no signs of violence. She was never seen again. Only days into the ensuing investigation did John lawyer up, and as far as anyone knows, he never spoke to police again. He died in November of 2025. Only a few minutes into this episode, and I already know what all of you are thinking. Well, before you go too far, remember Mary Jane Van Gilder. On that note, contemplate what really makes the difference between Mary Jane, who ended up living for another 40 years, and the wives who went missing, who we suspect died very quickly. While you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, if John killed Norine, really, was the cookie dough the best lie he could create? Number 2, once again, if John killed Norine, he could come up with a story but not remember to dispose of her purse? And number 3, could the investigation into Norine's disappearance been taken lightly because John was a firefighter in that community? Norine's siblings and her friends have no doubt as to what happened to her. The guest for this episode is one of Norine's best friends, Maria. Unfound news. Tweaks continue to be made to the Unfound database. I'm having some people testing it privately, but it will not be ready for the public until everything works perfectly. Next, recently I've spoken to the mothers of Brandon Roberts and Trevor Nichols. They both told me that their sons, who were missing for a while, are doing well, and the future is getting brighter every day for both. Finally, I'm in Pennsylvania. I will be here for a couple more weeks. My dad turns 89 this Monday, and he's doing well, although I will be getting some part-time help for him. And yes, it's cold. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound Maria. She is one of Norine's best friends from back at the time that Norine went missing. Maria, welcome to Unfound.
Why, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Let's just start here. Once again, as much or as little as you want to say. Just tell the listeners maybe a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into your connection to Norine, how you knew her, etc. But maybe just a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I grew up in Uniondale, New York. Graduated in 1977, and I went to college. Social worker was my major. Wow. I married a Coast Guard guy, and so we moved away in like 1986. After we got married, we moved, and we've been to like 7 to 9 different places that he was stationed. I now live in Florida. He retired, and I still work. I run a program for juveniles, 44 boys, and so wow. I have two daughters, 2 granddaughters, and we live here in Florida.
Wow. And yes, and as everybody knows, the audience knows, I also live in Florida, but it should be clear that Maria and I would have loved to have done this interview in person, but we're not. Maria and I, although we live in the same state, we are not that near each other. Just to be clear, it would have been fantastic maybe one of these days to meet Maria in person. Very good, and thank you for the work that you're doing with these boys and keeping them on the right track there, Maria. Good job for you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Very good. All right, so that's just Norine as a person. Let's just talk about your connection with Norine. How did you two first meet? What kind of, I'm thinking it was in school, but you can clarify that. Talk to the listeners about your connection to Norine and maybe what what comes to mind when you think of her these days.
Right. So Norine and I started, she lived down the block from me. She had a brother, 2 brothers, a sister, a mom, and her mom was divorced from her dad who was into martial arts. So Norine was also into martial arts. I knew her from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And then after 12th grade, a couple of years, we would go on ski with friends and stuff to ski trips and stuff like that. So Norine and I have been have known each other for a long time. We separated when I got married, and she met John. I don't know where she met John, but her husband at the time. Yeah. And so we kind of went apart. So then her disappearance got our attention, and a couple of girls that she grew up with got together at our 40th reunion and said, "What? They have not found Norine yet? Let's try to see if we could help in any way." And it's been many, many years, but if we could just find her to bring her home and rest, then that would be something that would make us feel really good. Her mom was a German woman who was very eccentric, and growing up, we always knew that when we went to Norine's house, there would be, it would be a spectacular time because Mom was always yelling. Kids were always there. One brother had a parrot that just landed on his glasses, I remember. There was always fun going on in Norine's house.
Wow.
through high school, she was a rhythmette. She was very athletic. She was into martial arts herself. So Norine was very fit and always had a good time. And I knew her through elementary school, middle school, and high school. So it was a long time knowing Norine. And we were very saddened by the fact that she disappeared.
I bet. Of course. Now, of course, Brown is her married name, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And her maiden name was Higuchi. Was she part Asian or?
Yes, her dad was, I believe, Japanese, and her mom was German.
Wow.
And they had 2 boys and 2 girls, and he moved away. I think he lived on the island somewhere, but the mom still lived in that house down the street from us, and we knew them well growing up. It was a close-knit neighborhood in Uniondale, very small town at the time. We both graduated in 1977.
Okay. All right. You graduated together. And it sounds like you had a pretty good group of friends here. As any group, people who are social, everybody maybe takes on their role within a group. What would you say, what kind of uniqueness and personality and everything did Norine bring to your group? Was she like the leader? Was she laid back? Where would you say she fit into your group of young women there?
She was a daredevil, and she was fun. I remember of her. She took very good care of herself, fit-wise, ate the right things, very athletic.
Yeah.
She liked to be a rhythmette in high school. Actually, we were the first, in elementary school, we were the first cheerleaders together. We were the first squad. So I was not a cheerleader or a rhythmette in high school, but she went to that path. So she was very alive, and she was a lot of fun, and she had a nice laugh, and we all took to Norine.
Yeah.
And she was a daredevil, too, because she had a lot of martial arts behind her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Very good. What did she do after high school? Did she go to college? But maybe we need to go over that a little bit. Of course, she didn't. Of course, she graduated high school in 1977, but she didn't go missing to 1990. And I realized that you had your own life to live, and you went off and met your husband, and had kids and everything else. Moved away from the area, but as best you can tell, what did she do after high school? Did she go to college? What'd she do?
She didn't go to college that I know of, but she did work in an insurance company. I don't know the name of it, but she worked in insurance, and she had her group of friends in insurance where she worked. She was very well liked, and she had friends there as well. Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you. All right. So, and we'll move on to this now. Her marriage. I'm guessing you said that you don't know exactly how she. And the name of her husband is John, and we're of course he's going to be a main topic of our discussion today. And by the way, we're doing this interview on November 18th of 2025, and so we're coming up very quickly, very sadly, on another anniversary of her disappearance. Very sadly, and of course her birthday as well. We'll get into that. But her marriage. Were you aware that she was getting married? Were you invited to the wedding, even though you maybe weren't in the New York area anymore? What do you remember about that time? I'm guessing maybe around 1986. What do you remember?
Yeah, she, I believe, got married prior to me. So
okay.
I was already, we didn't hang out together at that time.
Okay.
Or any of that. We grew apart. I don't know where she met John, but that was the group of friends she was going with. And also she had friends from the insurance company that were close to her too. Her best friend, Elaine. And growing up, there was another friend that we had, Renee Rebellion, who passed away. We were good friends growing up. But after high school and after I went to college and then I moved on my way, she worked at this insurance company. Okay. And then when she married John, they had 2 babies right away.
Okay.
At the time of her disappearance in 1990, I believe her son was a toddler, like 15 to 17 months, and then her baby girl, Alexis, was 6 months old.
Very young, like wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so she quit the insurance companies to take care of her kids.
All right. So she was not working at the time of her disappearance. And I guess we would now maybe call that, a stay-at-home mom, I guess, doing, so maybe she was planning to get back into, to go to a job outside of the home maybe at some point. But at the time of her disappearance, you're understanding she had taken time away from working insurance.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And John was a fireman in the city, New York City fireman.
Okay.
He made it to a lieutenant at some point, and then he became a fireman in Hyde Park, and that's where they lived.
Okay. Let's move on to talking.
High ranking. High ranking.
All right, so he was not one of maybe, I guess what we're saying, he was a fireman, but he usually wasn't one of the first guys on the scene. He might have been a supervisor by that point or something.
Yeah, but he had a lot of experience in the fire department, moving up in his ranks.
Okay. Very good. Let's just talk a little bit about John. You did not personally know him?
No.
Okay.
I didn't know him, but what I knew of him was that he was definitely not as nice as he could have been to Norine. And he had a way about him that was pretty mean, especially when he had a couple of drinks. And that's what I had heard about him. But I had no firsthand experience about that, only what was told.
Okay,
after her disappearance.
All right, we always just want to make sure when we talk about things like that, we want to make sure that, we're talking, sources and things. This isn't court. We're under oath or anything, but you were not around John, but you were getting this information from people you trusted who were around Norine and John at the time saying, this guy, not the nicest guy ever.
Right. But I didn't know him, so
yeah.
I didn't know him. So when he disappeared, I got all this information. Or when she disappeared, I got all this information.
Oh, okay. So you were not aware of maybe these things, if they're true or not. You were not aware of these things before. It was after she went missing that maybe others, and we don't want to put any names to any of this necessarily, but people were, well, you know what? This is just an example. Somebody called you up and said, well, you know what? They were having marriage problems. We saw John one time out, and he had a few in him, and he was really nasty, things like that.
Yeah, I have no information about that, except that after her disappearance, when I just mentioned our friend Renee passed away at 35, so we were 35 as well. I was living in Cape Cod. We were stationed in Woods Hole, and her mother, Norine's mother, it was after the disappearance, came to the funeral, and she was very upset. She wanted information. Okay. Maybe you know where my daughter is. Maybe you could help me find her. That was at the time when it was kind of fresh.
Yes, so right.
She was very much talking about how John mistreated her daughter, and she wants to see her grandchildren, and she was just broken because she was so desperate to find her daughter.
Right.
And her brothers, and I didn't talk to the brothers or the sister, but eventually the sister made an interview on TV as well. They wanted to find their sister. They wanted to find the daughter, and they were hitting brick walls on that.
Okay. And we should maybe, I'm just kind of doing some calculations in my head. So your friend Renee very sadly dies at the age of 35. So this would have been maybe around 1994, something around there.
Yeah.
Maybe, or so
94,
maybe just
95.
90.
Yeah,
so maybe 4 or 5 years after the disappearance, Norine's mother shows up at this funeral, and it's 4 or 5 years into the disappearance, and this is what she's saying to all of you.
Right, because she was still looking for her daughter.
Right.
Now, when she initially disappeared, Renee called me. I was living, of course, in Cape Cod, and she told me about the news. And at the time, I was devastated, but I just assumed that she would be either found or the investigation would progress to a fact that they would know what happened to her, because she's not the type of person that would just disappear from the face of the earth. She had 2 babies to take care of. And that's what we were all saying at the time.
All right. Let's go through, maybe we need to go through that. How did you find out that, if you can remember, of course, we're going back 35 years. How did you find out that Norine was missing? Who told you?
Well, Renee, our friend, we grew up together as well.
Okay.
She was still in touch with Norine at the time as well. And she called me. I was living in Cape Cod. I had two babies of my own.
Okay.
And she gave me that news. And so initially I was, wow, how did that happen? And then the story started to unravel about the unhappy marriage and the, where is she? And then the facts about the night of came out as well.
And we're going to get into the facts. Even though we know you weren't there, we're going to go over the facts here in a bit. Would you say, once again, I realize this is 35 years ago, but would you say in that initial conversation when Renee called you, did she express a belief, a theory that maybe John could have done something to Norine? Did that come up in the first conversation, or do you think that didn't come up until later? Once again, I realize, that's been a while ago.
It didn't come up. It didn't come up right away because we just thought, okay, where is she? Let's get her home. Like, we didn't know we didn't know that it was going to take this long to find her. Like, we just knew initially that she could be found or what happened to her. And that's not like her. That's not like her to do what she did that night. That's not like her.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about John. Once again, understanding you did not know him, never. Have you ever even been in John's presence?
No. Oh, no,
Okay.
I haven't.
Just, would you say, once again, women or men that you trust who are around him, would you say that they found him, to be harsh, did not like him? What would you say about John? I know you've mentioned him already, but I just need to ask you very point blank. What would you say the people that you trust, that you like, who were around him, what did they have to say about him?
Well, just the people I knew and that knew him knew that he could be mean when he got drunk. That was about the best that I could find, because I really wasn't back there. I wasn't in New York, so I couldn't make a judgment. And so they were very closed-mouthed about him as well, because nobody really wanted to talk about any of what he did specifically or anything. There was one charge. She had called the cops one night, and I had found out about that from domestic. They had a big fight, and so the cops were called, and that was the extent of it early on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just to kind of put this in a bit of a timeline, you and Norine and these other young women, you go to high school together, you graduate in 1977, you all go your separate ways, as many times people do. And then you ended up getting married, but then it was Norine got married after you at some point. And
no, before me.
Before she gets married, before you. And then you get married. And then at some point she has these two children, not long, just a year and a half, 2 years before she goes missing in 1990. And then you are told about her disappearance from this woman, Renee, who very sadly, I guess, died just 3 or 4 or 5 years after this happened.
Right.
Oh, very sadly. Okay. If you can remember, when was the last time you might have talked to Norine? I'm guessing maybe it was years before she went missing. Could you even put a finger on when that was?
Right. Thinking.
That's okay.
Years, because I went to college. I got a job in New York City. I got involved with my husband. She went her separate ways. But the first 2 years after high school, we would go with a group of friends to Hunter Mountain to go skiing and stuff like that. So lots of fun there. She was a good skier, by the way, very good skier. But I wasn't as good, but she was good. But then after that, after my 2 years at Nassau Community, I went into social work, and then I worked a gazillion hours in my first job as a social worker.
Gazillion, okay.
In New York City as a foster care worker. That was me. So we kind of went our separate ways then. And then when Renee kept in touch with her, And then we went to the 10-year reunion together for high school, which was 87.
Yeah.
And then she was already, I believe she was already involved with John. I don't remember that, though. I was married. Yeah, she was married to John already. And then in 1990, well, she was with him. I'm not sure if she had married him yet.
Okay.
They were together a while before they had kids.
Okay. What you said, there was a 10-year high school reunion? You did say there was one?
Yeah, and we all went. She was there, too. She was there as well.
Okay, so maybe that was the last time you saw her at this reunion, possibly.
Yeah, it was actually.
Okay, gotcha. And, of course, you got to talk to her. So I guess you did meet John, now that we're kind of fleshing some of these things out.
No, he wasn't there.
Oh, he didn't go.
There.
Oh, he didn't go. No. Okay, very good. All right. So let's move on to this. Maybe we need to understand this, being that you've mentioned Renee so much, but being that we're going to be talking about Elaine here in a moment, because she was the one that got called by John. Once again, we're not going to get into her last name. You know, she's not here. But the role that Elaine maybe played in your group of friends, or is there a reason maybe that John would have called her compared to anybody else? Once again, your best insight.
Well, I know why. That was her best friend at the time. So she worked at the insurance company with Norine. So just a couple months before her disappearance, she found out that Norine wasn't so happy with her life was going with John. But, it was just, girlfriends talking. That's all that was, right? So the day that she disappeared, she had gone shopping with, I think, her mom and her sister and the kids. And then when she came home, they supposedly had an argument, husband and wife. And then 11 o'clock at night, she went to Pathmark to get cookie ingredients because it was going to be her birthday and it's close to Christmas cookie making anyway, right? So Elaine indicated that the next morning John's parents were already at the house and he called her, Elaine, to go to Pathmark to see if the car was there. And she was like, "Why are you asking me? It's 8 o'clock in the morning." That was kind of weird, right? So she goes and she sees Norine's car not parked close up, but parked far further away from the actual store. So if you go into Pathmark at 11 o'clock at night, you're not going to park in the back of the parking lot. You're going to park as close as you can to that front door.
Right. All right.
So she found that car, and then she told John, and then the police came.
Okay. So let's just make sure we got all of this, and I understand it so the listeners can understand it. So the setup is, as you stated, Norine goes out with her mother and the kids shopping the day before, and or that earlier that day, and they come home, and the word eventually gets out. Of course, it wasn't maybe known right at the time that it was happening, but eventually comes out that, I guess John said that the two of them had some sort of argument, and then Norine leaves in her car to go to this local grocery store, and she doesn't come back. Right. So, and this is happening late at night, maybe 10:30, 11 at night. She doesn't come back. And then it's not until the next morning that John calls Elaine. I guess he doesn't call the police. He calls Elaine first and asks her, "Hey, Norine never came home last night. Could you, for me, go to the local grocery store and see if her car is there?" And Elaine does that, and what do you know? Norine's car is there.
Yeah,
that's
parked away from and his parents were at the house already when she got there. They were at the house. Now, just so you know, they weren't living at the current house. They were living on top of a plumbing supply store, which is where John owned this plumbing business as well. And on Jericho Turnpike over there, they have apartments above storefronts. So they were living there at the time, and they were renovating this house that he currently lived in. They weren't ready to move in yet. It was almost ready to move in, but it wasn't ready yet.
Okay.
So that was under renovations. Wherever she disappeared from was not the house, it was that apartment.
Okay, gotcha. So they're living
Just
in
to
this
clarify.
apartment, getting prepared to move into a house with their own property and everything. But for then, they're living above this plumbing company, which John also ran. So he's a firefighter and runs a plumbing company.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty successful. I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure he was pretty, good at what he did.
Okay. Very good.
They had since, it was a family business, if I understand that correctly, because they finally eventually sold that business and then the new owner took over.
Okay. All right. So that's where they're living. She allegedly goes to the grocery store, doesn't come back, but he seemingly, I guess, doesn't go out himself and look for her that night, doesn't call the police. He waits till the next morning and calls Elaine.
Yes.
The way you, once again.
Even though his parents were at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Or his mom, at least his mom was at the house in the morning. Like, he called her first, then Elaine.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Moving on. Of course, you somewhere in maybe was it that next day that Renee called you, or was it the day after?
Yeah.
It sounds like it was pretty soon that Renee called you.
Yeah, pretty much when she went missing, she called. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll get into the condition of the car here in a moment. Once again, understanding that you were not there, what is your understanding of what was done at the time? So eventually the police do get called. They go see the car is parked where it is. They, start trying to figure out where she is. Did she run off or whatever? What was done? Any searches done? Things like that.
Well, the other thing that was kind of weird is that Elaine said that he was able to take the car home. And then pretty quickly he lawyered up. And so the actual investigation is something that we haven't really gotten to the bottom of after all these years of trying to contact the police detectives that were involved. There was very limited information we were given, who they questioned, any of that. And they did have a search, all her friends got together and did this search of the area. John did not go, and Elaine said because he felt that he was too upset. So he was not part of that search for Norine, like in the neighborhood area, in fields or wherever they looked for her.
Okay. Now, of course, you weren't there, but somebody, I guess, told you that it sounds to me very early on that John, as we say, lawyered up. You were told. Yeah. Okay, so police are asking him about the circumstances and what was going on in the marriage, maybe even asking him, why did you call a friend of hers first? Why didn't you call us first? And somewhere within all of that, John just decided, I'm not talking to you people anymore.
Right, and that's probably what happened, but we've gotten zero information from people who were supposed to be doing the investigation. So they could I don't know if they searched the apartment. I don't know if they searched Falmouth, where the house was, Falmouth Avenue. I don't know any of that, but I know that they told him he could take that car home, and they didn't take the proper precautions for that. And at that time, there was no cameras. That was back in the day when there was no cameras, so there was no scene of going back and forth or who was at the parking lot. Okay. Although they questioned the people in the grocery store that worked there, and they really didn't get anything from them either.
All right, did not remember seeing Norine there.
Right.
Okay. All right, so we have all this going on, and maybe I should ask you, being that Renee called you like that very next day, telling you, how often were you getting updates at the time in 1990? Every day? Was Elaine calling you, Renee, maybe other people calling you every day, or what was going on?
Well, I personally didn't know Elaine yet until years later when we tried to investigate this ourselves. But Renee and I probably talk once a week about everything, so that was part of what we talked about.
Okay, very good. Let's get more into a few of these details. You mentioned the car. It was in the parking lot, but like you said, not near the entrance. It was like parked far away from the entrance, you're understanding.
Right.
And on top of that, but you should know this, being that you brought it up, the car was returned to John fairly quickly. You should know, unfortunately, this still happens to this day, Maria, for a lot of bad reasons. But no, to your knowledge, no forensics done, nothing like that.
Mm-mm. And it was first in the missing persons department at Nassau County Police Department, and then years later, I'm not sure how many years you have to wait when he remarried, and they moved it to homicide for some reason. I'm not sure why, because we don't know where she was. We don't know anything about her disappearance other than she disappeared, and it was not in her nature to disappear. It wasn't in her nature to leave those babies. It wouldn't have been. But he made it clear that, I think he didn't tell me this, but he said that she ran away with somebody. That's how he put it off.
Okay, but
never told it to me, but that was the way it was put out there.
Okay.
And then they interviewed the family as well. They interviewed the family.
When you say they interviewed the family, what do you mean by that?
They interviewed John's family, sisters,
they did.
brother, sister, parents, yeah.
Okay. Do you know if any of them lawyered up?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Now, what's, I think, very important to understand about this disappearance, of course, the car is found there, and, the audience, you should know, Maria, we've covered many disappearances like this, where married women go missing and their husbands do things and say things that are very, very difficult to understand. We'll just put it kindly like that. One of the most common type of disappearances that we feature on Unfound. A lot of missing married women going missing out there, and a lot of those married men acting exactly like John did for her disappearance 35 years ago. But something that sticks out to this in this disappearance, though, is she was going shopping, but where was her purse found?
There's two stories on that. It was found in her car, and then she didn't take it. So there's two. I'm not sure because I can't get the answers to that. It was, one story said it was in her car. Second story said she left it home. So if you left it home, then how are you going to pay for your little cookie dough? I
agree.
And if it was in a car, then why would it be in the car? You still have to pay for your cookie dough. There's two different stories that I can't get a hold of.
Right. And do we know any more about the car? Was it locked? Were the keys in it? Is that something you remember or not?
No. I think it was locked, though.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I would assume it was locked. And I don't know about the keys, but they did have, I guess he had a spare set to get it back to the house. Right. And then after her disappearance, the police, of course, went to him to ask him questions. And then before you knew it, they had that search, and he didn't go to that. But then when things died down, they died down fast. And the family was screaming and hollering about, find my daughter, find my daughter. And they started pointing the finger at him, especially Mama, right? Especially her mom.
It sounds like
and so what he did was he cut the children off from her. Like, okay, you want to be like that? You're not going to see your grandchildren, because I'm not going to be accused of doing anything to your daughter, and you're not going to poison my children about this. So he went to court and cut her family off from visitation and everything.
For all these years, 30-some years now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. As best as you can tell, as far as people you trust, once again, your opinion, of course, you've gotten to speak to you're working with a group, that's why you're on Unfound today, but you're working with other friends of Norine's, raising awareness, seeing what can be done now here well into the 21st century. as best as all of you can tell, who was the last person she spoke to that all of you trust?
Well, I would believe it would be her sister Susan, or Elaine. Those are the people that I spoke to, and those are the people that were desperate to find her at the time, and even now. I mean, the sister has fallen off because she doesn't have any faith in anybody finding her beloved sister, and she can't be tortured about this any longer.
Right.
Same as her brothers, right? Mom has been long gone, but I remember at Renee's funeral, the mom was totally devastated by the fact that she couldn't see her grandchildren, and she pointed the finger straight at him, and she wanted her daughter back. And she asked us, I was talking to her, if I knew anything about it, and I couldn't help her, and that was devastating in itself.
Now, we should note earlier in that day that Norine did see her mother, correct? They went shopping or something.
That's how the story went. The sister had talked about shopping and stuff, and she brought the babies home, and then she went out later when they were sleeping to the store.
And of course, they went out shopping. They come back to this apartment that's over this plumbing business. Of course, the mother and the sister leave. Norine's there with, I guess, John and the kids, and then allegedly later she goes out shopping for cookie dough.
Cookie dough, the cookie ingredients, that's that's what's all in the papers. That's all we kind of put together about this. But we do know that they were turbulent, and we do know that he had that kind of streak in him that he would, and he drank. So we all know that, but we can't put it together because there's no evidence that ties into it specifically.
Okay. How far, once again, being that I've never been there, but you know the area well, how far is it from where they were living at this apartment over this plumbing business to the store? How far?
Couple miles.
That's it?
There's a couple miles.
Just 2 miles.
That's it. And the store, a couple miles as well. It's very quaint little town, beautiful little town. Now it's built up a lot more there, but in 1990 it was like quaint little town where the store was right there, 5 minutes away, and so was the house that they were going to move in to in a nice neighborhood, not on the main road.
So I guess what we're saying here, only a couple miles, it's certainly walkable.
Yeah.
Just as an example, somebody could have dumped the car there and walked home. Could be. You know, the car was not 50 miles away. It was only a couple miles away.
Couple miles away.
Okay. Let's move on to this. Was Norine eventually declared deceased? Do you know? I'm not. Yeah, I think she was. I'm not sure because I have no paperwork to back it up. But when he wanted to get married again to his next wife, he had to do something with her disappearance. Right.
Either she was declared dead or not. So
that's right.
I believe that was able to happen, and then it moved for some reason over to homicide.
Right. Let's move on to this. Now, to your knowledge, once again, I realize you don't have the police work, and even if you wanted to get the police work, they wouldn't give it to you, just like they wouldn't give it to me and most other people because they call it an ongoing investigation, even though we know they're not doing much. And we'll talk about the police here more in depth in a little bit. But is it your understanding that once John said he wasn't going to talk to police in 1990, that he never did speak to police about Norine's disappearance ever? Any knowledge on this?
No charges. No knowledge because no charges were ever put on him. No, you didn't really need. I mean, they did their little investigation and they weren't able to get near him.
Okay. Regarding the property, of course, once again, when this actually happened, they were living at this apartment above this business. When did John, I guess, and the kids moved to that house? Do you have any idea when?
Yeah, soon after. It was almost done. soon after.
Okay.
Within the year. I could say within the year.
Okay, so, and that is where John lived for the rest of his life?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, where is John now?
John is deceased. He just passed away a couple weeks ago.
All right. And I think, and in fact, I think that this is what actually put Norine's disappearance maybe on my radar and how we ended up talking, is because I think that there was something maybe you posted on the page or somebody somewhere, some guy who was rumored to have done something to his wife had just died and she is still missing. I think that's maybe what caught my attention.
Maybe now we could get somebody who will come forward is basically what we were hoping.
Right.
And for the record, we never knew that anybody would be tagged on her murder or anything. Mm-hmm. But if we would have found her body, or somebody would have discovered her body, and so we could have her family be at rest and Norine be at rest by having a ceremony for her and burying her or whatever we were going to do, that was our main purpose. Because we knew that the police department was supposed to be investigating all these years, and it was a very, very cold case. And we just want to find her. And so I got on that website that you put her in so that any Jane Doe, they could match her.
NAMUS.
Stuff like that. NAMUS, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
She's part of that as well.
Okay. Now, regarding this property, like you said, it was shortly after the disappearance that John and the kids moved to this property. He lived on that property until he died just a couple weeks ago. So he lived in the house. So I guess, once again, you're understanding this house and this property have never been properly searched. So if we're to think that this was foul play, and as we have examples just within Unfound's own history and catalog of disappearances, Zoe Campos, Andrea Bowman as examples, with missing people who were murdered found on personal property. What we're saying here is that property in the house has never been searched in all these years.
No.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, probably not. They probably police have not done that. I don't know if they would have cause to do that, even though we can circumstantially say it should be done. A judge usually needs a little more than that.
Yes.
But
and initially it should have been done, right? Initially it should have been done. Both properties should have been searched.
Yeah, if they could legally do it, I agree with you. I'm just not sure if it legally could have been done. You could get the paperwork to do that. Just once again, my experience. Who owns the house now? Who is living there now that John is deceased? Do you know?
Well, I assume that it was left to the kids. So I think possibly the daughter lives there, but I have no proof of that. Okay. I think she lived there while he went in his last days, but I'm not particularly sure who's living there, or if they're going to sell, or if they're going to keep it. I don't know that yet.
Okay. And you did say already that these, of course, children too young to have any memories of their mother. In addition to that, they were raised by John, and your understanding is that he told them that their mother ran off.
Yep. And I had tried to get in touch with the girl, Alexis, mm-hmm. but she didn't want anything to do with anything that me or the friends around me, because there was a group of maybe 4 of us that were trying to investigate. And in 2019, we went to New Hyde Park, and we were on TV, Channel 12 News, and we tried to get information about her disappearance and drum it up again, but they didn't want anything to do with us at all.
Okay. So they're very protective of their father. Let's just put it that way. Once again, we realize that there's no, like I've told you before, Maria, we've covered many disappearances like that. And we're left in a situation where it's factual information versus circumstantial information. Puts everybody in a very complex position, especially the people who are trying to figure out what happened. Okay. So, and we should note that these children never had any contact with any of Norine's siblings nor her mother before her mother died. They were totally excommunicated out, totally blocked.
Pretty much. There was one time that the oldest brother visited the second wife that I am friends with, and they went to visit maybe one time, but more than not, they didn't have a relationship with the other cousins or anything.
Wow, bad. Now, before we started this interview today, once again on November 18th of 2025, we did want to talk about the police a little bit, and just, I think your feeling is they've let a lot of slip through the cracks over the years. What do you want to say about that?
Well, they knew of us coming and trying to get information. They knew that we had the capacity to answer questions for them or just try to find out more about our friend, but they were very closed about it, especially the homicide department at New Hyde Park Police Department. I spoke to the chief of police, and she assured me at the time, she's no longer the chief anymore, but we got these two detectives going to work with you. They blew me off more than I could tell you how much they blew me off. And I could just, if you're looking for this missing person and the people want to help, people want to be part of it, people want to give you information, you want to open your door to them. But they were very, they treated us like we were just these old housewives that didn't have nothing to do. So
give us an example. Give us a really good example instead of maybe just generalize. Give a good example of what happened, whether it was just this past year or 5 years ago or whenever. Give a good example.
Well, so in 2019, my friend and I, she lived in Connecticut. She lives in Connecticut. I live in Florida. We met. I came to, and we did the interview at Channel 12 News. We made a little bit of spark everywhere. Oh my gosh, who are these two women? They're making noise, right, in New Hyde Park. So the police department, there's two detectives that called us down to the police department, locked us in this room, cold room, and left us in there, probably watching us from wherever they were, took our phones, and then they asked us a bunch of questions, and they said, we're going to be working alongside of you to help you find Norine. Don't worry. Well, you have a sonar thing we could probably get somebody. How about, checking areas that are cemented over now? Can we check this? Can we check it? Oh, yes, we're going to do that. And so every time I try to call the detective, he either blew me off or he didn't answer. So they just wanted us to go away and leave them alone. And the case went colder and colder. Now, we put that Find Norine on Facebook. We have a web thing on Facebook,
right.
Find Norine. And so we had all these people telling us, just different tips. And we would tell them about the different tips, and they all went cold. Every last one of them. And that's the most frustrating part of it. They didn't tell us to mind our business or nothing. They just told us, oh, yes, we're working with you, and we're the two detectives that are working with you. And they just blew us off completely. And so we continue to have this Facebook page, Find Norine, and so people continue to say, I think she's here, I think she's there, but they really don't have proof, so it's like very frustrating.
Yeah. Why did the police take your phones?
Don't know. Why did they lock us in that room? Don't know. But they left us in there for at least 25 minutes, and then they came in and they just asked us a bunch of questions about what we know about it, and then we told them thinking that they were going to help us and give us, start us helping with this, and then they just said, we'll be in touch, and then they blew us off. They took our phones. They left us in this room. It was a small room. It was like an interrogation room, actually.
Yeah, I got the idea that.
And they didn't scare us. But it was very confusing to us because they just knew these two women were just all over New Hyde Park making noise. Let's go find out what they want, and that's what they did. In hindsight,
in your opinion, as an adult, do you think they were trying to intimidate you?
Yes, 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 yes. And we were very articulate to the 6 o'clock news. We were very articulate in talking about our friend and drumming up the facts that they didn't do what they were supposed to do to find her early on, nor did they try to uncover this cold case. Blowing us off was not a smart thing to do, but they did it because they didn't feel that they had any consequences for it.
You eventually did have contact with the chief. Did you make this aware to the chief? I guess who was a woman. Did you let her know that this happened at some point? Did you tell her that?
What had happened was she was a new chief. We wrote her a letter. She said, "Okay, I got these 2 detectives to work with you." And then she got transferred to New York City, and then boom, it went cold again. Now I know. But
did you make her when you spoke to her? Did you tell her about how you got your phones taken and all of this?
No, because that happened after.
Okay, all right.
And she was already gone.
Okay,
so there was and she was no help anyway because she didn't really follow through.
Okay. I will ask you this. Do you think this could have, once again, this is just a question. I don't have any proof of this. Could it be because, sometimes, the fire department and the police department work together a lot on, of course, in a lot of different things. Do you think this could be part of it? That they know that this guy who is a suspect in her disappearance is part of the fire department or was or retired or whatever, and they're kind of protecting their own. Has that crossed your mind?
It's crossed my mind 100 times, but I don't want my mind to go there because I think in general, people want to find a missing person. I think in general, if this guy was bad news, they would know it would come out anyway, so that they wouldn't be part of that. And you're talking about a whole fire department of New York and a whole and a whole police department. I don't think it could go that far, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just being hopeful. Maybe I'm being hopeful, but somebody knows something. He had to have slipped somewhere along the way. If he did it, he must have slipped to somebody, and that information has never come to pass. And that's the frustrating thing. This woman couldn't have just disappeared from the face of the earth and nobody knows where she went and nobody has a clue. I mean, on Find Norine, we have plenty of clues, but plenty of people playing detective. But in reality, you need proof. Like, you can't just walk into his house and say, we want to search. You can't. You cannot. I mean, people need to understand that's his property. Right.
Right.
And you can't just now go to the kids. Now, don't you want to find your mom? No, we can't do that. They just lost their dad. You can't do that. We have to find a way, though, if somebody could come forward to tell us, okay, how about this? I know this. Or it should have already happened. That's the most disappointing thing about this. It should have already happened early on.
Okay.
Because she was a person. She had 2 babies, and you robbed those 2 babies of their mama, and you robbed her of raising those 2 kids.
If that is what happened. Once again, we don't know. If that is what happened. Your impression, she would never leave those kids behind. I can certainly understand that sentiment, but we also have to keep things in the theoretical. Once again, there's no proof that he did everything, even though circumstantially it points us in a particular direction. Remind everybody, what police department is this who tried to intimidate you?
Nassau County Police Department.
Okay.
Located in Mineola. Who's the homicide department.
Okay.
2 detectives.
Let's move on to this. Now, of course, you said this got started at your 40-year high school reunion, which I guess would have been 2017. What was it about that year, about that gathering, maybe that set all of you off? What was, what made that a seminal moment in all of this for all of you friends who are friends of Norine? What was it?
Okay, so we went to the reunion, and there was a memory board of people who have passed, and Norine was on the board, and we're like, wait a minute, didn't they find her yet, kind of thing? And the answer was no. And so there was three of us that decided, okay, let's look into this more. So we got in touch with Norine's family. We got in touch with Elaine. That's when I met Elaine. Okay. I met with Elaine in Florida. She was visiting. She lives in another state. And then I got in contact with the ex-wife, and then we tried to move forward with it. And we only have found blocks and obstacles in our way the whole time.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times we put it on Channel 12 News, nobody came forward. Although people have sentiment about Norine's disappearance. Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's sad, but we haven't found her yet. And that is our main purpose.
Mm-hmm. So it was seeing her name up on that memory. Of course, 40 years, let me see, my 40-year high school reunion would be coming up. I don't know if there's going to be a celebration or not. That's coming up in a few years. But, you know, we're not youngsters anymore, and people do pass away. In fact, I know of at least a few of my high school classmates who have passed away since I graduated in '89. So, you know, you see her face up there on the board, and that's what kind of got your attention, everybody's attention.
Right, and then also we made that Facebook page, Find Norine, and then we got all these pictures of her as a young person with all full of life, and the newspaper article about her birthday time, she was full of life, and she didn't, well, I don't know for sure, but I know her enough to know that she just didn't disappear. She had enough friends and family around her to not do that.
Okay. You've mentioned
if she did,
please go ahead, please. No, go ahead, please.
And if she did disappear, you would have known where she went by now. Like in the beginning, if she just disappeared and the guy she left with a guy, or whatever, you would have already uncovered that long ago. Okay. Where could she have gone? Disappearing?
Well,
where's she living in?
The tough part is one of Unfound's most well-known disappearances is exactly that, a woman who had unfortunately, I'm not saying I necessarily believe that for Norine's, but we covered a disappearance, all the listeners know about this disappearance, a woman who went missing in 1945. Her name was Mary Jane Van Gilder from Ohio. She was married, had children, and she really did leave her husband and children and started an entirely new life with a new husband, new kids. And she ended up dying of cancer in 1989, and it wasn't until 2024 that anybody knew about any of it.
Wow.
So it does happen.
Yes.
And the unfortunate part is, it sounds to me, as best as I could tell, with Mary Jane Van Gilder's husband, kind of same way as John. You know, a guy who was not respectful of his wife and controlling, might have had a drinking problem, something like that. It's very similar. Mary Jane took off. She was working at a factory during World War II. She took off with her supervisor at that factory. As soon as they were done working there, she went with him. She moved to Arkansas, had more children. They technically got married, although there's no proof of that. And before she died of cancer in 1989, she told one of her grandchildren, I'm dying, I have a secret, and I hope nobody ever finds out about it. Well, eventually police, using DNA, figured out who she was and put it all together. And some of her living children, who were still alive, lived long enough to find out what happened to their mother. Mm-hmm. So it does happen. Very rare. Very rare. But I want you to be aware of that, and I'll gladly send you that episode. Of course, I featured the disappearance before it got solved. It got solved a couple years after I had a police officer on about it. I'll send that to you, so if you want to check that out. But it does happen. Just very
I understand.
Rarely. Very rarely.
I mean, I just Phew, her friends just want to find her and just put it to rest. But it might not happen, it might happen. And I'm hoping for people to, if they know anything about the early days, they would come forward. The early days of the disappearance is what I'm saying.
Right. You've mentioned this Facebook page a few times. Why don't you tell us, let's just talk about it specifically now. What is the name of it? And I guess you are one of the administrators on it. What is the name of it, and how can people reach you?
Well, there's 3 administrators. I'm one of them. Find Norine. It's on Facebook. You could message me on there, and we'll answer you, or you could post on there. And also on there are other people that are missing, and we talk about Norine. All of the news articles are on there, and all of the videos that we've made. There's also a video of the sister who was interviewed early on when she disappeared. And on there, I look for people who are going to say, hey, yeah, I remember that, and this is a new clue for you. And then I could report it to the police department, because I'm not giving up on this.
No, of course
Neither
you're not.
are my 2 other friends.
No way. Once again, what's the name of the the Facebook page? Say it one more time, please, Maria.
Find Norine is the name of it.
All right. All one word. There's no space, and it's all one word, right? I think.
One word.
All one word. No space in between Find and Norine. All one word. Okay, very good.
All one word, and you'll see her pictures on there, and you'll see all of what we talked about over the years that when we were trying to find her. Okay.
Maria, any final words before we complete this interview?
All I want the public to know really is that this case has been cold way too long, and if we could get the police department to reopen this case in a different manner where we could find her, that would be the best thing that could ever happen to her family and for Norine, because she's been lost too long. And if anybody knows anything, find Norine, and you could message me on there, or you could post on there, and we will answer anybody that would talk to us.
Okay. Maria, thank you for being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And that was my November 18th, 2025 interview with Maria, best friend of Norine Brown. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. I will begin my summation where I ended the beginning of this episode, and that is talking about this kind of disappearance. John says Norine went to the grocery store. Her car is found there, yet no one saw the car being parked there, and seemingly Norine's purse was back at the house, although there could be a discrepancy regarding that. John lawyered up quickly, and my perception is that he did nothing to try to find Norine, the mother of his children, right up until he died just a few weeks ago. The answer to this mystery seems to be right in front of us, yet this is actually another feature, a horrible one, of this kind of disappearance. This is the kind in which the perpetrator is most likely to get away with it. Yes, certainly there are the Mary Jane Van Gilders out there, but actually hers wasn't the man said type, because no man actually said anything about Mary Jane. She was at the factory, then she wasn't. Hers was classified as a walk-off by me, and I was right. Referencing the Unfound database, which will be made public soon, you'll be able to do a search for all disappearances classified as the man said type. You can also combine that with checking how many of them have been solved. I'll ruin the ending for you. It's a very small percentage. In fact, of all the different types of disappearances that could be murders, this is the one in which the ratio of resolved to unresolved is the worst. Frankly, these guys get away with it way too often. And that is even accounting for the idea that, yes, maybe some of these women really did take off and started new lives and were not murdered. Why is this? Why do seemingly so many men get away with it? It's a combination of factors, at least the way I see it. It's the factor of living so closely with someone else. It's a factor of society putting such a romantic attachment on relationships. It's a factor that the idea of a husband killing his wife is just repulsive. It's a factor of too many police officers, who are mostly male, too often agreeing with a man when he starts telling lies about his wife or girlfriend. It's a factor of too many women in these types of relationships making it too easy for their men to kill them by going along with what the men want. It's a factor of men who would think about murdering their women knowing how few of these types of disappearances get solved, meaning police not resolving this kind begets more disappearances of this type. The unsolved ones give the future killers a template to follow. It all eventually adds up. We really need to figure out a way to resolve this type. The perpetrators are known, and somehow they can't be charged with anything. We have to get more creative in catching them. We can't wait around to hope to catch them with their hands in the cookie jar. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of Norine Brown, go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, sign up, and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.